Oh, there you go. Okay, good. All right. Well, shoot, the microphone was off the entire time. That's awesome. Sorry for those listening at home. We had a little problem, I guess, with apparently the microphone was off. I don't know how that happened. I do apologize. We're back online. Sorry you missed all of that. Maybe that was for the best. I don't know. But to recap, we talked about acolytes, and we talked about exorcists and different minor orders when it comes to someone preparing for the priesthood, and the difference between those two, an ordained state and someone who's in what we call a lay institution, which would be like an exorcist or an acolyte or a lector or a porter or a catechist. So that's just to keep you all up to speed what we were talking about. So sorry about that, but we should be good from here on out. Good. And that's only, 35 minutes in, so yeah, that's a good portion, right?
Do you ever get questions from that?
No, we had, some comments were made that they couldn't hear it, so
okay.
Sorry about that. But we have one viewer apparently, so if there are any questions online, feel free to type them. I'm looking at them, so give it a shot.
He does get questions from the online people.
What's that?
He does get questions from the online people.
Yeah, every so often. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, tonight might be a little different just because people might be over in the church. You know, a lot of our crowd may be over there tonight, so which is fine, good. But yeah, any other comments, questions, concerns? We can wrap it up too. That's fine too.
Well, I have a quick question.
Great.
I read the headline and didn't read the deal. What's going on with the big financial situation at the Vatican?
Yeah, so I think they're still trying to figure out what's going on with that.
So what is it?
Well, so okay. So at the Vatican, just like any other country, really, right? So Vatican is its own city-state.
Right.
They have these different offices. So you have like the diplomatic corps, like Father Seiler. He's a diplomat, right? He's probably going to go off to his new assignment, I think in the fall. Someone said South America. I have no idea.
Angola.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, yeah, someone must have screwed that one up then. Yeah, because usually you go to a third worldish country to start out. So he's probably going to be Archbishop in like 5 years, whatever. So they also have the other offices like finance, right? We have like the SEC and other things like that. People can control the finances. One of those finances, that kind of the main fund that is really meant to be a charitable fund, is known as Peter's Pence.
Sure.
So Peter's Pence is an ancient fund that goes really to fund the charitable wing of the Catholic Church, help out with people. It's also been used to fund like crusades back when crusades were a thing, and also you talk to Dr. Thomas Madden about a lot of that. He'll tell you what the crusades really were, and it's been kind of changed over time, but Peter's Pence was used to kind of help in these facets of the Catholic faith to kind of spread this charity and to do good things. Well, of course, we know that men are fallen, right? And sometimes people are put in positions where they shouldn't be. And so there's kind of been some allegations of corruption, that certain funds were skimmed or siphoned or taken out. Maybe not necessarily Peter's Pence, but these other banking, there's a main bank in the Vatican that's used to kind of control these things. And were used for some nefarious means, primarily for particular cardinals or archbishops, like housing situation and upgrade it or whatever, blah, blah, blah. You see this kind of happening right now in Germany. And that's even, in Germany's kind of weird thing, because in Germany, they take a tax, and they put that tax towards whatever religion you say you are. So in other words, you have an income, they'll say, okay, well, you have this religion tax, so if you're Catholic, we're going to take 10% of your paycheck and just give it to the Catholic Church. Or if you're Lutheran, we're going to take 10% from your paycheck and give it to the Lutheran Church. And that's kind of caused a little more corruption as well, because, well, what are these funds going to? You can only use so much money in a certain time, and so what you end up with these surpluses of money, and no one's actually using it because no one's coming to church, right? That's a little bit different for the Vatican. They actually have sort of more of a capitalistic attitude that's really more directed. They're still a non-for-profit, but there are certain allegations made that these cardinals and these bishops are taking this money, skimming it off the top, and using it for their own personal means. And so now that's kind of come to a head. And quite honestly, it's probably going to be the next scandal to hit the church.
And this is new? No.
Well, I mean, I think it's probably all this happens. But I think in light of the sexual abuse crisis and everything else, the light is being shed on these places where it wasn't before, and in a way, good, right? Praise God, because that brings about some accountability and can actually make things better. There may be a question about who's going to actually provide accountability.
Exactly.
Should it be the secular authorities? Well,
You gotta have the right guy in there,
right.
a person. Or who.
So that's
Who reported it? Who initiated or who reported the fact that this was going on?
yeah.
Is
I don't
that a
know if that
layperson
information's
or
really
a-
come out. I think part of it's been, people within the organizations, like whistleblowers, which is good,
Yeah.
right? Part of it just could be questions were asked, like, "Hey, this archbishop got a brand new Rolls Royce. That's weird. What does he do that for? Where do you get the money for that?"
One of those.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, I think part of it's just been like, "That's really weird. This guy just got all this new stuff when this is supposed to be a priest. What's going on with that?" And others, I think it's been like, "Hey, there's something funny going on here. We need to investigate this area." I think it's been kind of a both and. What's going to happen with that? I have no idea. I would imagine there's going to be some reformation going on within the Vatican as far as who's doing what, who has control over what, who has the oversight and accountability. Kind of like what we saw with the sexual abuse crisis, that there's been much more spotlight shown on those things, especially here in English-speaking countries where bishop conferences got together and made these overarching, very deliberate rules about time with minors. I would imagine the same thing will happen when it comes to the financial state too. Now, I think the saving grace there is, who really knows for sure, but is that limited to just the Vatican, or are there other places that are the same thing? I don't know. I would think here in the United States, let's give more particular than that. Let's say here in St. Louis, we were kind of blessed to not really be as rocked as other places when it came to sexual abuse crisis. And I would imagine we'd be in the same boat when it comes to the finances. And part of that, I think, is because our prior archbishops for the last 3 decades or so have been pretty transparent with where the money's going. There's a yearly kind of state of the archdiocese has been put out, where the finances are, what the income is, where the outgoing is. There's been very clear about where finance has been handed off within the archdiocese and by different parishes. And I think it's been made very clear, especially in the seminary formation, of transparency in really everything. So I know particularly I'm always very careful about taking money from people in public, because I don't want there to be any error of, oh wait, what's going on here, right? I tell you, I feel kind of a couple sometimes even picking up the collection. Now there's cameras between the sacristy and the vault over here in the rectory, and so there's the accountability. You're showing every time what you're doing, but it can be very awkward, right? But I think here in St. Louis, you're probably won't find that being as much of a problem. But also, what we know is where it happens in one place that affects others, and even though there may be some bad apples, that's going to be perceived as a problem with the entire organization.
Yeah.
We saw that with the sexual abuse crisis, unfortunately. But also, I think that also there can be good coming out of it that makes people more accountable. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, I think, in a way, with every scandal, really. So.
Speaking of finances, I don't care about the percentages, but how does the Vatican get money? I would think that each parish would provide a percentage of whatever they have to the archdiocese.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
So
funneled up.
there is something called a cathedra tax, right? So they have it. Some people call it a bishop's tax. Some people call it. There's a big question about whether that's legal, because there's nothing in the law that dictates that has to happen. In a way, it's kind of like the United States tax code, right? There's not really anything in the law that says I have to pay taxes. In the same way, though, it's looked on as a charitable donation to keep things in the archdiocese running. So part of it, and this is, when I say law, I mean universal law, right? So like the Code of Canon Law, right? This book, you won't find anything in this book that says, St. Gabriel the Archangel needs to pay a tax to the archdiocese, and the archdiocese in turn has to pay a tax to Rome, right? not in here at all. Now, there's also particular law in particular areas. So here in St. Louis, there is a law or a dictum or, a whatever may be, a guideline that says in order to keep financial stability, a certain percentage of an annual, is a certain number of years of annual, on average, annual income needs to be kept with the archdiocese, right? So in other words, we pay out of our funds every year a particular percentage of our income or our budget that says this is designated for the archdiocese, and that's kind of kept in perpetuity. That in case we ever get in a financial problem, we have that to back us up for a
Is
certain
that
amount
the
of time.
assessment?
Yeah, the assessment.
Okay.
Right. So
And that's for each parish.
that's for each parish.
Right.
Right.
But I would assume each parish, depending on their financial status,
Yeah, it could be more, could be less.
could be right.
Yeah, right, exactly, right. But it's based on the percentage of the particular
So it's
parish.
really a tax.
In reality, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not really used. Like, it's not like the Archbishop can say, "Oh, I'm going to take, okay, from St. Gabriel, thank you for this $300,000. I'm going to take this and actually renovate the Regalia Center."
Right.
Right. Primarily, those things are being done through like capital campaigns.
Sure.
Right. So the Archdiocese raises it. Hey, we need $500,000 to put a moat in front of the Regalia Center. Whatever. Okay, great. So let's go out and fundraise to do that kind of thing. That stuff that we pay to the Archdiocese really is our money, but they're just keeping it for us, like in case there's like, let's say we hit a financial ruin like a pandemic, and for 3 years straight we can't afford to keep this place open. We can say, hey, Archdiocese, we have a certain amount of money already with you that we need now in an emergency situation to kind of run this place.
None of that assessment goes to Rome.
No, that's the Archdiocese. Now Rome kind of runs it the same way. Rome is its own diocese, so they have their own parishes, their own dicasteries, their own curias, and so they probably have the same thing from the churches in Rome. But these other funds are not necessarily like funds that are used to run Rome. They're used to like can run other issues, other concerns or situations within the Holy See. So
Well, somebody's got to fund the Vatican.
yeah, the parishes of Rome do. So Rome is a see. Rome is just like St. Louis, right?
Sure.
We have Archdiocese of St. Louis, the Archdiocese of Rome.
But they've got a lot more high-paid people in Rome
But
than
it's its own
we
country.
have here at St. Gabe's.
Right.
Vatican.
But the diocese, though, so the bishop, the Holy Father is the Bishop of Rome.
True.
Just like Archbishop Zansky is the Archbishop of St. Louis. The Holy Father is the Archbishop. He runs that diocese, right? The diocese includes like Rome, Ostia, all these areas around Rome, right? There's an area that have parishes and they have particular churches, and they do the same thing they do there as they do here in St. Louis. Okay, hey, Paul outside the walls. Okay, you make $500,000 a year. Why don't you give us, I don't know, $5,000, right? And that adds up after a while. It's the same thing that can keep that money, and then also they do capital campaigns, whatever, within the people of Rome that would provide for their needs within the Vatican and whatever else. And they may even go to different places and say, hey, I don't know, hey, Nisei, we got a lot of money here. We need some help. Can you help us out? They kind of can go do that. But it's really the same concept in where we are.
So all these different countries, like the United States, does not send money to Rome
No.
for the Vatican.
No. Vatican's their own diocese. Now they can come out they can ask and say, can we get some help here from the different dioceses, right? It's like Belleville came and asked, hey, we need some help. Can you give us some funds? We can say out of the kindness of heart, sure, here you go, fine, whatever. But it's not like it's required. And part of that's because the way the ecclesiology of the Catholic Church is set up, that what we understand is the autonomy of an actual bishop, right? So, in other words, the Holy Father can't come here to St. Louis and say, Archbishop Zansky, you owe us $50,000, or I need you to put a fund in place to help us out at the Vatican. He has no authority to do that. Now you can ask Archbishop Zansky, hey, can you think you can do this out of kindness? Do you think people in St. Louis will be able to provide for this? But the decision comes down to Archbishop Zansky, not to the Holy Father. So in the same way anywhere, that's the way it works. Like Archbishop Zansky can't go to Jeff City and say, Bishop Goodnight, I need you to put a fund in place to help fund St. Louis. It doesn't work that way. That's not what we understand the bishop to be. The bishop is a territorial territorial autonomy within his territory.
As big as the Vatican is, though, I find it hard that all the churches of Rome would be able to fund that.
So I'm saying they're not funding it. What I'm saying is they do keep the Vatican does keep certain money from these parishes on hand, the same way that the Curia does here.
Sure.
And if let's say the Curia here in St. Louis needed something, they would find that funding through other fundraising means, whether it be like endowments or whatever else. The Vatican does the same thing. Now they may do it in a larger scale. They may go and ask, like maybe the Archbishop of Frankfurt or something, can you help with this? But it's not addicted. It's not like you have to do this.
And there's got to be a lot of lay people that work in the Vatican.
Well, primarily they're clergy. So really, the people that live in the Vatican are all clergy. The people that work in the Vatican, yeah, there's probably certain lay people, but primarily they're still all clergy.
And then where does Peter's Pence go that, we give the
So
Vatican?
Peter's Pence is primarily just a charitable fund. So hey, we just had a tsunami in Indonesia.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we have some money in Peter's Pence. We'll take that certain money and give it to them to help rebuild, or Catholic charities can take it and bring it to them, provide food, water, whatever else, right? Oh, we just had an earthquake over in India. Okay, well we take from Peter's Pence and stuff for that. Right? So every parish in the world has a collection on Easter Sunday for Peter's Pence.
Right.
Right? And so all the money in the world that goes to that collection is designated for Peter's Pence and goes to Peter's Pence. So same thing like, what is in canon law, and this may my answer to the question on a broader scale, is that funds are only used as the intention of the giver. So in other words, let's say Paul, you say, hey, Father Mark, you did a great job there with that that mass the other day. Here's $50. I want you to use this to take some homeless people out to dinner, right? By law, I can't do anything else with that $50 but what you designated it for. By law. And if I did, I'd be breaking canon law. Now, the question could be, well, what is the repercussion of that? Well, who knows? But that's what the law dictates, is that funds can only be used with the intention of the giver. So the collection, for instance, the collection is kind of like, well, this is used for the general use of the parish. Okay, that's pretty broad, right? But they also have capital campaigns. Well, this is used to designate just for these building projects you have going on. I have to use it for that. I can't use it for anything else. And that's kind of the same way any parish or any diocese really runs. It's really all run through charity. I mean, that's true. That's just how it goes.
So, I buy a lottery ticket and I win $100 million.
Beautiful.
And I come and I
take some.
talk to Monsignor Schamleffer and I say, I want you to knock down the Gabe House.
Mm-hmm.
I'll pay for it, and I'll pay for a new Gabe House.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't want to run it through the parish, because then the archdiocese gets their cut.
Well,
Can I do that?
so what you're saying is, so the assessment comes not necessarily from endowments, right? That wouldn't necessarily be what the archdiocese assesses. What the archdiocese assessing is, in general, what's your general income from like daily your weekly collection, whatever else, right? You can designate it as this is a separate endowment that's really just directed towards that particular fund.
Put it in a trust and be
Right,
done.
exactly, right, like a trust.
I
That's
just-
okay.
That's
Now-
very hypothetical, because I
Well,
don't buy lottery tickets.
So,
but
so here's
I thought you were going to start.
okay, Jim. Does the diocese take the cathedral tax and all monies the parish collects? Okay, yeah, right, okay, yeah. So no, not necessarily, right? The answer to that question from the answer, yes, if the tax taken from all monies, and no, not necessarily, right? Now the trick may be though, and I had this experience when I was in seminary at a particular parish, will remain nameless. They were getting ready to close their school, and a donor out of nowhere designated $500,000 to keep the school open. We probably already know
Would that be a
that
dog
was.
pound?
Huh? Yeah.
St. James.
Where I grew up, Doug.
So,
St. James the Great.
hey, well, rename us, rename us.
Wade Avenue, baby.
So-
Dam Avenue.
Joni went to school there.
So, as a pastor, that's a tough decision. Because here's the thing: as a pastor, I could deny that and say thank you, but no, right? I appreciate your help, but I can't do that, especially because you're designating that for a particular purpose. And maybe me as a pastor is thinking, that may not be very prudent, because that's only getting me through maybe a year or two. The other side of that coin is I look pretty foolish and probably would get a lot of people mad at me if I don't take that money and put it towards that particular purpose, right? So that's where it's a tricky wicket, right? It's a really kind of a sticky wicket when it comes to that thing, because, okay, I can choose not to accept it, but also I have to use it for what you intend. And so that's a tough decision. It's a double-edged sword, right? And the same thing had happened. Like, I want $50 million to tear down the Gabriel House. Okay, boy, that's a lot of money, and I'd be foolish not to. But do I need to do that, right? Is this something that really needs? Is that better for the parish to not have the Gabriel House? Is it better? I mean, so these questions to be asked, and it has to be kind of looked at from those perspectives, right? Because again, I can't use that for anything other than what you designate. So it's tough. It's tough.
So without spilling the beans, or without telling us something we're not supposed to know, I've heard rumors about maybe a capital campaign or two that's going to be ongoing in the parish.
Yeah, I don't know if that's really a rumor. I mean, I'm not sure if that's really. I think that's pretty much out there. Yeah, there is a plan. I'll say this: there's a plan in place to renovate the Gabriel House and add an addition onto the vestibule of the church. And there's supposed to be a capital campaign forthcoming to get that. And I think, from what I understand, it's very doable. Not all the details are really done yet. They're still kind of working through it. There's a lot of engineering. There's some, I shouldn't say there's a lot. There's a bit of engineering work still to be done. But I think in general, the plan is in place. And I think information will become forthcoming on that pretty soon.
What is the intent for the vestibule to make it
So
bigger?
the intention of it is to extend out from where the baptistry is to make kind of an outdoor and also like some meeting spaces. So not like huge places, but like places we have maybe like a Bible study or like donut Sunday. So instead of like going to the cafeteria, as everyone's coming out, they can just go right there to have donuts. Possibly make like reception rooms for like maybe like if people want to have like their rehearsal dinner or like after a baptism or funeral. That's kind of what that area is designated for.
Or for the bride to get changed before the wedding.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Gabriel House is really going to be more directed towards STEM youth program. There will be also meeting spaces over there, but that's primarily the focus. Is going to be kind of like a extension of the school.
Band gonna stay there?
Band's going to stay, yeah, all that good stuff. They're going to be currently like an amphitheater in the back. So it looks really great, and it seems it seems kind of interesting, the price and the time frame they're saying about it. I'm kind of skeptical, but I don't know, whatever. Chances are I'll probably be here to enjoy it anyway, so we'll see what happens. So yeah, but it's
You know something we don't?
well, I mean, if you're talking about time frames and shelf life of an associate pastor, I'm kind of reaching that. Good person to talk to would be the man who's over in the church right now. He'd know better than I would.
Well, let's just go talk.
Go ahead.
You can interrupt.
No, I mean, I'd imagine, if not this year, next year would be my last year, probably. I don't know.
Well, all of the reassignments have come out.
Oh, yeah.
For
What I'm
this
saying is, what I
So
mean
it'd be a
is,
year
within this
from now.
next 365-day period,
Right.
right? So, come May of next year, 2022,
You may hit the
I may
list.
be moving. If not, then probably the following day. Usually, shelf life of an associate is like 3 to 4 years.
And the natural progression would be for you to be an associate somewhere else and then become a pastor?
Sure. We'll say yes. I have no idea. I really have no idea. Well, squirrel.
A lot of those around.
I don't know. I let's put it this way. I am okay being a pastor. I am happy being an associate. I'm
Probably
okay either way.
happier.
I mean, I'd probably be happier to be an associate just because I'm well aware that, especially during these last couple of years, I wake up every morning and thank God I'm not a pastor, even though I am right now because Monsignor Shatmulfer's out of town. But,
Is he over in Ireland golfing? Is he over in Ireland golfing again?
I don't know Ireland. Where is he? I think he went down to Florida. But
Oh.
anyway,
He's done that in the past.
yeah. So I'm here. I'm the pastor for as long as Monsignor's away. And so we have to pray nothing happens. Please do that for me. But yeah, I mean, I do realize though that once you start making decisions, you also make enemies. Not as enemies if people disagree with you. And as the associate, it's cool because like I can be the nice guy. I can be like, hey, love me, because that's great, right? Now I make a decision to get anyone mad at me, which is awesome. And that time is coming to an end.
But
You
you've
know.
lived that life prior to becoming a
That's
priest.
why I appreciate so much, because I've done that in my working career. I know that once I make decisions, people are going to get angry with me.
Sure.
And it's just part of life. Whatever decision you make, there's going to be people that are going to support you and people that are not. It's not really a moral thing. It's just like people have preferences, and that's what happens, right? So, and I don't think like angry, but like definitely will not agree with you.
Right.
And so that's part of the understanding. And I just hope that it works out. But it'll be a work of the Holy Spirit. It'll be God's will, not mine.
Amen.
And so whatever happens, happens. So I just got to be prepared for it no matter what.
You know, talking about the vestibule, enlarging that, it's in this one particular parish has a very large vestibule, and it was designed basically to get the people out of church and talking in the vestibule as opposed
Yeah.
to being in the church to talk right after mass. Everybody's talking, right? But there's people praying, and you know that's a problem.
Yeah, I think that's the intent of this. So like, you're right, because
Yeah.
I never grew up in a South City parish where we had a space where people could go after mass and do that, and it's nice because you can have that space to actually do what's intended to do.
Right.
And then you have space where you can socialize and be that way. We don't really have that
Right.
here, and so I think that's going to be one thing that will be helpful. That you can just pray it after mass and actually not and do it prayerfully and quietly, and then you have a space where people can actually interact and have fun and talk and
Right.
be fine.
I mean, I was at a funeral the other day, and so this particular church has a large vestibule in the back, so that the body was laid out in the vestibule
Yeah, instead of up by the altar.
instead of up in the
Right.
church.
Well, you had the visitation back there. Yeah, that's actually a new trend too. Like people actually have a visitation in the church.
Right.
That's kind of a new thing within probably the last maybe decade or so.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
Probably less expensive. I guess.
See, I don't know because you still have to transport the body and everything. So I mean, I don't know.
Except you don't take the time in the funeral home for those many
Yeah.
hours or whatever.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
It'd be
Are
nice
you
if we
aware
had an
that-
adoration chapel.
Yeah, I know that was brought up maybe as part of the. I don't know what they're going to do over here. I've seen plans that has the chapel in it still, and I've seen plans that don't. So I'm not sure what's going to happen with the
Sure.
Gabriel
I
House.
understand,
I think part of it we do have 24-hour, well,
Yeah.
12-hour adoration, but yeah, you're right. So I don't know. The question is, where can we do it?
Yeah.
And part of being in the South City Parish, we're kind of landlocked in a way too.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Because I remember years ago when they added on to the school, what they called the narthex was part of that project, and it was pulled out.
right.
I'm not sure why, if they didn't get enough money, or they just said, hey, we want to focus on this.
Yeah, I think that was like what 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, 18, 20
Yeah.
-ish,
Because I remember they were talking about that, and they said, yeah, what it was is they went instead of maybe like looking at 3 separate projects and floating it out to those 3 separate projects, they wanted to focus on only one in particular. And so I think part of it was I don't think we can raise enough money to do all that. So I think we're picking that up. So I think the Gabriel House is part of that original plan too. But then they said, well, it would be too much to do. So they didn't even like power wash the wall. They did something over, a lot of that stuff. And said it was just going to be too much to do all of it. So we're going to focus on just 1 or 2 things and then go from there. So I think this is a continuation of that. Thinking now that we have enough funds that we can actually put it to those uses. So, yeah. But I think that's going to be coming out probably in the next month, I would say. Probably see more information about it. I think the plan was maybe start on it around when school started, and then by next year when school starts, it should all be done. That was, I think, the grand scheme. So we'll see how that goes.
Fundraising done or construction done?
Well, fundraising actually has already begun. Apparently, we already have a good portion of it raised.
Probably done the silent part.
Yeah. So anything going to fundraising will be just kind of, yeah, based on what we have already. Well, good.
Another great session.
Thank
I
you.
think so.
Thanks for your time.
Well, appreciate it, guys.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming. Thanks for
Thank
watching
you.
online. Was there any question online before we wrap up here? Maybe we could ask that question. Sometimes there are a couple that come in. Oh, here it is. Well, we did cover it. So the question is, what's your take on the Pope's action regarding the Latin Mass? Apologies if we answered this in previous weeks. Yeah, we did. We kind of talked about it a little bit last week, and I would just refer you probably back to last week's episode. But the gist of it is, when it comes to liturgy, Holy Mother Church has full authority to do whatever she wants when it comes to liturgy. The structure's always been the same, whether it be the Latin Mass or the Novus Ordo. And I think it's also important to recognize, this came through some reflection and prayer too, the Holy Father has not suppressed the Latin Mass. He's not. He's maybe kind of limited it to a certain extent, sure, but there are places here in St. Louis, and I think ultimately what you'll find is nothing's going to really change here. The places that are having Latin Mass, they're still going to have Latin Mass. It's just that you won't have any more personal parishes that actually celebrate Latin Mass. And it'll still be available to people. So I think part of it was just kind of like, there's a big question of why it happened at the time. What was the idea behind that? Some of my brother priests have posited that maybe it's tried to deflect, like you were talking with some of the other things going on. Maybe, hey, look at this over here, let's not pay attention over here. Maybe, I don't know. I think the charitable way to interpret that is, well, the Holy Father saw an abuse. He's trying to overcome that abuse. We can also debate whether it's the best way to overcome the abuse. I don't know. But I also trust he's guided by the Holy Spirit. And the best thing for the church will endure. So that's really my 2 cents worth there. All right.
Thank you.
Well, very good, guys. Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Father.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.